What is happening? It's your boy Roy, and it's another episode of Sync Gems. Today, we have Brianna Shelko. Brianna is an amazing artist. She also owns Level Up Productions, and she is doing a lot. She had her first sync a long time ago on MTV. She started making music when she was 8, literally making music. Maybe when she was 6? Yeah, when she was 6, I'm sorry. So she started music when she was 6. She wrote a song and performed it when she was 8. But her story is insane. I'll let her speak it to you. What I love about this conversation is Brianna's ability to transparently talk to you about her story, her numbers, the reason that she sold a bunch of trailer tracks, and how it has helped her keep the ball rolling, and why you may want to do it too. A lot of people say, don't sell your publishers, don't sell this, don't sell that, which is fine. But we have an open conversation about where the world of sync is going, how people are going to be making their money, how AI is gonna affect it, because Brianna has been doing social media for a long time, and she knows where things are going business-wise and also music-wise. So I think this was a really special conversation to kind of get into it, get into the weeds, speak about it, and yeah, this conversation is nothing short of amazing, because again, a person who is making big leaps, big steps, and has a big vision, talks about their peer group, how to choose their people around them, and so many more things that are valuable, that have been valuable to me, that I've been able to take in and hopefully use in my life. And I know that you're going to have the same experience. So if you want to help the podcast, you know what to do. Just go ahead, share the podcast with people you love, but also follow the podcast on wherever you're listening to it, and review it on Spotify and Apple. This really helps, okay? So if you rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or just one of them, this really helps the podcast grow. If you're watching it on YouTube, just go ahead, hit the like button, but this really helps. Another thing is, I have a free 11 gems for a sync, a successful sync career that you can download today. It's completely free. You just go ahead to roymats.com/gems PDF, and you are going to get your 11 gems that I have gotten from the guests on this podcast, and it's completely free. So the link is going to be in the show notes. And without further ado, Brianna Shelko, what is happening?
Hey Roy, just living the dream. What about you?
I'm living, and I'm learning to be to have gratitude for the dream that I'm living.
Absolutely.
So how have you been? Where what's been going on in your world? But what's oh shit, like I'm a bit my mind's all over. Let's start with your story, like how it all started for you. We met through your mother, actually, which is a dope, right?
Oh yeah.
You forget about it, but I met you through your mother, and which I'm super happy I've met, because we had a beautiful conversation about dogs and stuff. But but
Shout out Mama C.
yeah, but we met at PMC at random, and
Yeah.
that was so cool, because your mother wanted to connect us, but it didn't really come together. So we met in PMC at random, and I am so grateful to have you here. So why don't we start with like your story? What brought you to this point, to where you are? You have I would say like a full-on company with a with you've sold some IPs, you've done a bunch of stuff that artists don't normally do. So I would love to know first the trajectory of what brought you to this point.
Okay. How far back you want me to go, Roy? How
However
far back?
far you want. You can go to day one.
Day one. Oh my god. So when I was 7 years old, no, and like
Let's
that's
go.
really what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was 7 years old, received, I've told this story so many times, but like it never gets old to me. But I received a little toy piano, and my mom's girlfriend had asked, like had taught me. She played piano beautifully, and I was like, "How do I play this thing?" It was like a little Casio, ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding. Like it sounded like a toy, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I want to play something. I want to learn something," and she taught me how to play Heart and Soul. And then I interpolated Heart and Soul and turned it into my song called Hi, Hi, Hi. And I sang it at a talent show when I was 8 and went
Wow.
to the studio for the first time when I was 8. So I've been recording like professionally in professional settings since I was 8 years old. And so by the age 10, I had released 3 albums. I had released an album at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. By the time I was 17, I got signed to a Christian record label here in Atlanta. It was cool. Got the experience of management, this, that, and the other. Ended up not working out. We parted ways. And, learned what a management breakup felt like at that point, and that was ooh, that was not fun. And then by the time I was 19, I got booked with my own episode on MTV, and that was technically my first unofficial sync. So when I was 19, I didn't even know what sync was. I had no idea what any of that meant, but I knew I wanted to have my music on television and film. I didn't know it was called synchronization. So, so on this episode of Friend Zone, season 5, episode 4, yeah, I had this whole episode to myself, and the only reason why I went through with this is because like I told the producers of the show I just wanted to sing like an original song. So in the episode, you'll actually hear me playing, and that was technically my first sync. And that went into by age 2021, I started my social media agency, and I was known as a social media expert for the next 7 years of what would be the next 7, 8 years of my life. And the only reason why I went that way is because social media was paying me so much that I was able to buy a house, any car I wanted, and I was able to go to Nashville anytime I wanted and record however many songs I wanted. So the money was great. But I still wasn't being fulfilled. I was still miserable doing social media. I hated waking up every morning and having to report 25/7. I loved my clients, but I hated the job itself. So after 7 grit years of that, and then taking that money and just working so hard to afford to do music full time, I just thought I just have to keep doing this so I can afford to do music full time instead of actually doing music full time. So I kept thinking, because music had never paid my bills. So I was like, there's no way it's going to, oh, ye of little faith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So by the age 28, I was offered a full time job with a client who I had for 7 years on the social media side. Finally took a full time job with them. By the time I turned 29, they laid off a bunch of people, like a ton of people. The company was not doing well at the time. So they laid me off, laid a bunch of people off, basically cleaned house. And at that point, I was like, what do I do? Like, I had dropped all my clients. I finally took a normal job where I was like able to
Mm,
relax, only taking, I had like no other
yeah.
clients, no other anything. I was just like working a 9 to 5 like a normal person. It felt great. Like, it was me relaxing. And when I got laid off and I had no income, I was like, huh, like that was my first time going on what do they call it, the state support, like when you unemployment. It was my first time ever at 29
Mm,
years old ever having to go get unemployment just to pay my grocery bills. Like,
mm,
it was a very real moment where me and my husband were really trying to figure out like how the hell I'm about to like actually do this, you know what I mean?
mhm.
And I told James, and he's been very, very supportive of me, that I was like, I can't go back. Like, I have got to figure out this full time. Like, I've been working all my life to get to this point. It just so happened that that same week I got laid off, I was also nominated for a HEMA award, a Hollywood Independent Music Award. And I was going to cancel my trip to LA because flying from Atlanta to LA was very expensive. And my parents were like, no, you need to go. So
Mm.
I went. My mom actually came with me. My it was great. We had like a support. I had like a little support system going out to LA for this thing, and I was like, Ma, there's just no way I'm winning. Like, I've had a shit week. I just got canned from my job. There's like, I'm coming out to LA to just seal my fate that it's going to be a terrible week. You know what I mean? And then I won. And I was like, what? And I mean, you had to see the line of people, all the talent in the
Mm,
room. There was no way I would, I don't ever walk into a situation assuming I'm ever going to take something home like a win. You know what I mean? Because there's so much talent out there, and you have no idea who the person next to you and how hard they've been working and how since
mm,
what age they've been at it.
mm,
And so won my first Hollywood Independent Music Award, and then from that moment, I formed Level Up. Like, it had already been formed legally a year prior to that moment, but at that moment, I did Level Up full time after that.
mm,
And that was because it was like an affirmation. It was like, wow, this is literally what it was, like a sign. This is what you're supposed to do. Like, this is how you're going to win in life and be happy doing what you love. And I've just been at it ever since. And that's kind of like full blown turned into 12 sync songwriting camps. I think actually we've done more than that in the past 3 years, but 12 sync songwriting camps across the world. Abbey Road Institute, shout out to London, UK Angel Studios, Angel Studio 2, for sponsoring our camp there. We've had amazing times in Nashville, Miami, LA, several times in LA. We've had custom camp clients where we've recorded custom albums, like for Janice Dickinson, the model from American Idol. I mean, not
mm,
American Idol. Was it America's Next Top Model? Um, and and then we've had clients like the CJ, who's an up and coming pop rock artist. It's been wild. So, and then we got to do a custom sonic branding experience for Monster Energy. And that turned into a sync this year, finally. Just a couple months later, we did that in May, and now it's out there and it's synced, and it's been a really crazy. Once you put all your energy into it, it's kind of like where I'm at. This as far as the story. I'm trying to like make it a whole thing, but yeah, somewhere in there, I got a dog, got married, all this stuff, but
mm.
that's how it worked.
Yeah. Wow. So you got your first unofficial sync at around 17, was it? Damn. Like or was it 19?
19.
19, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
19.
that's that's pretty sick. I feel like the I've seen a pattern in this show of people getting like little trickles of something and not understanding, and it's what happened with me as well, like where I would do something for sync without really knowing what is sync, and then suddenly I see something out of it and I'm like, whoa, this could be a thing. And then I start pursuing it, and I feel like that's what happens with a lot of the guests who come here. But your story is super unique in that you've experienced so much in a very young age, if that makes sense, like of the industry in general, of a music industry or whatever niche you were in, and you've experienced the social media side of it, which is the other side of being the talent mostly.
Yeah.
And then you kind of formed level up music, which is it an agency, or is it like how would you what is the level 21 level up?
Level 21. I like
Level
that.
20,
That's a new name.
where's level 21 from? I don't know why it's stuck in my head. Anyway,
No, you may
um
be thinking of Level 77.
11
They're
77.
they're a
21
sync library.
Pilots, level
21
20,
Pilots. It
and
could
you
be
and level up. Level up is
Level Up.
actually
There's a lot of
the
levels.
Sierra song, right? Like it's such a good
Level
song.
Up, Level Up. Yeah,
Level up,
that's her.
yeah, it's a good song.
That's her.
Um, but how, like, what exactly is, because it seems like you're doing so many different things. Like, and I love sonic branding. I've done it too. And like, what, like, the question is a bit, I bet, I would say like a twofold. Like, what is level up, and then what what is the focus and how it's shifted for you, because it's been a few years and you've done camps and you've done a bunch of other things. So I guess it's a twofold question. Take it wherever you want, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it started, I'm going to address the latter first.
Yeah.
Um, so Level Up started, like Level Up Music Productions started as a sync library. I thought that
Mm,
I wanted to be this like PML. I wanted to compete with the APMs and the five alarms, and I wanted to grow this massive library and sync all over the world. I thought that's what we were going to do when we first started Level Up. So we formed a nonprofit. Level Up as a whole are two different entities. We have Level Up Songwriting Camps Corporation, which is the nonprofit 501c. That is responsible for all the sync songwriting camp experiences for the community of artists to come write for sync with us.
mm,
And then there's Level Up Music Productions, which is now a sonic branding agency, along with lots of additional sub services. But that's really what we're known for, is like custom music for brand, custom music for sonic branding. Um, so yeah. Um so it started out as like this micro library, and it
yeah.
was just not syncing, because we came into this like we were full force in the middle of the strike. And so we
Mm,
were doing all these camps in the middle of the strike. We were doing, and so, and everyone's like, why are we not syncing? Why are we not syncing? And I'm like, guys, like, read the room. There are folks, like, music supervisors are looking for work. Like, they're looking for a job right now. You need to chill out on, like, whether or not like, be human. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of that. And I got very frustrated with working with creatives who just wanted to sync all the time. It's all
mm,
about I just want to sync. I just want to sync. And I'm like, take it out your emotion of what you want to do, and like realize that this is a human who can't pay their bills right now. Like,
mm,
this is like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, this is, so I pivoted from that moment, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be this PML where I have to deal with this you know, type of pressure of like syncing this catalog.
mm,
I want to, one, truly be the creative, but two, I want to do it on a much larger scale than TV syncs. And there's nothing wrong with TV syncs, but I wanted to do it on a global scale for brands. So, yeah, so it pivoted from like a small library to now that IP has been acquired. It's in the middle of being acquired right now, in which we've been able to negotiate the same terms, like for all of the writers who have came to our camps and everything like that. So nothing's changing, but it's being acquired by a larger entity that's going to be able to provide a lot more opportunities than my little team right
mm,
now. So that
mm,
way they're going to start seeing syncs, they're going to start seeing success. But then over here, I can focus on what I really want, what I found, what Level Up is. And that's truly like a one-stop custom shop for the big brands and
mm.
TV and film.
Yeah, and I see how these two can fit, because like from these songwriting camps, you have so many connections with people, with heavy hitters. And I want to get into a little bit of into like professionalism, and also, is that a word? Professionalism?
Yeah,
Yeah,
professionalism's a
yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah. But so professionalism, and also your, I mean, your support system seems solid. And I'm thinking that, a lot of people are not lucky as some other people, let's say, with the support systems they have, because music is like pretty objectively a hard thing to make a living off of.
Oh, it's
Um, yeah.
100% tough,
So
yeah.
where does that meet you?
Um, so yeah, just like anyone else, like when I first started on this journey when I was 7 years old, everyone every year was like, "How's that little music thing going? Are you still?" I still get asked, "Are you still doing that music thing? Are you still doing that little music thing that you're doing?" And I'm like, "It's not so little anymore."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it was not, and it still is not always um people believe what they want to believe, and perception is everything. So where that meets the support system is, I keep people near and dear to me who truly um see the vision, who breathe life into the vision, and if they don't, they're not in my circle. Like, they're chop chop, you want to take from my table, you want to whatever, like, that's cool, but like, chop chop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no room for any BS or any negativity. Like that's not happening. You're moving weird, or like, you know what I mean? Like I have this dream, and as crazy as it may seem, I know it's going to happen, and I have to know in my heart of hearts it's going to happen, and the people around me have to know in their heart of hearts it's going to happen. There's power in speaking it. There's power in people believing. And so if you allow those folks to be in your inner support, like support system doesn't mean blood, and it does not mean family. Okay? Like I pick and choose who my family is, and I pick and choose who my blood is. Like
Mm.
that has nothing to do with I operate my life a little differently than people. They're like, "Oh, it's blood, it's family." I'm like, mm-mm. Like if they are your support system, they're your support system. They're going to be down no matter what. And loyalty is a big thing with me. And
Yeah.
supporting and words of affirmation are a big thing. So where it kind of meets in the sense of, you know, people not being lucky enough to have that support system, you're looking in the wrong places. You're
Mm.
looking for affirmation from people who don't care. You're looking from people who have vision too small. They're too blind to see your gigantic picture. Remove those people from your cornerstones, is what I call them. And I have like a very set small group of cornerstones where if I'm tired, if I'm weary and I stop believing, all I have to do is lean on them and they're breathing life back into me because everyone gets tired. It's a hard industry. So if you're looking for this support from people who are like, no, that's not going to happen. Oh, that's silly. Go to law school instead, or do this or do that. Like it takes time and dedication. But trust when I tell you, the minute you start hitting success, I knew they were going to do it. I always
Oh
knew.
yeah.
I believed in them. And you still keep them at
Yeah.
an arm's length, even after they show you kindness, because they're not a cornerstone and they've shown you they're not a
Mm.
cornerstone. So it's, does that answer the question? Like, I know it's kind of,
Yeah. Yeah. Choose your cornerstones 100%. I feel like, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like where it meets me is I've always kind of felt like a chicken with their head in the sand kind of thing, like an ostrich with their head in the sand.
yeah.
Not a chicken, it's an ostrich, right? Like
And also,
this is morning time for me. I'm out. But like
right.
I've been feeling like an ostrich. I feel like in my life where I've never seen negativity breathed into me
Mm-hmm.
where people see me grander things than I see in myself, which is
Oh,
like
that's
it's a
a
great,
blessing.
yeah, that's a blessing, but it comes with also sometimes like it feels like there's expectations. So there's kind of this thing where I feel like self belief has to meet um the belief that the system has in you sometimes. I guess I've had it reversed where people believe more than I believe,
It's
and
like
that
imposter syndrome. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had that as well. Yeah.
yeah. So how you know what? Like I'd be happy to know like to understand where that comes for you, where that came, and then how did you pivot out of it? I guess.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, Roy, because this year has been me overcoming, like overturning the imposter syndrome, and I just got out of this. So I can speak to this. It's very
Please.
relative, very relevant in my life right now. So earlier this year, things were not going good. I mean, we were struggling to, I mean, we're still a small business at the end of the day. You're always struggling until you're not, you know what I mean? Until you have enough stability to just be like, okay, I can put everybody on payroll full time doing this, you know what I mean? And we don't have investors. We are our own startup. So our investors are our clients and you have to do a really good job to keep them. So
Yeah.
anywho, with that comes when you're at the head of the table, like myself, you have all this pressure sitting right here. Like, I am the reason why this isn't working. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
maybe I'm not as good at this as I thought. But what you're doing is you're putting outside pressures, you're allowing the outside pressures of others' expectations to dictate your worth. And I've
Mm.
also learned this year, because it's the brokest I've been in over 10 years, okay? and this is full transparency. I believe in being fully transparent. I woke up one morning with negative $300 in my account this year for the first time. I have never overdrafted. Like in 10
Mm,
years, I would have been extremely financially stable. And so going into music full time has really triggered insecurities in myself with imposter syndrome that I didn't know I had until I went through it. So I woke up with this negative bank account. I was trying to figure out, like, how am I going to get this team paid? How am I going to do this? How am I going to also make my clients happy? Right. So all these pressures. And then I started equating myself, which I didn't realize I had already previously done. And maybe you can relate to this and maybe you don't. Some people can and some people don't. But I was equating my self worth with a dollar. Like how many dollars Brianna generated was how important I was as a person, how worthy I was as a person, and how important I was.
yes.
So that creates, when you don't have the fundamental inside, like a dollar, something as silly as a dollar dictates your worth as a human. You know what I mean? Um, it allows you to have this crazy level of imposter syndrome because you're putting all of your worth into how many dollars you have. And at that point, I had negative 300. So I
Ooh.
was like, I'm negative 300 on the cool scale right now. And
Yeah.
I stayed in that rut for like 5 months. And of course, my cornerstones are like, get out of it, get out of it. That's not you, get out of it. You know, they're like, I'm being ping ponged against my cornerstones. They're like, stop. But the way that I ended up getting out of it was truly going within myself and doing the work. Like, I did gratitude journals and I still do them every Sunday. And
Mm,
I write down what I'm just grateful, just gratitude and having a mindset of gratefulness. And for me, it's also faith. I'm very faith oriented. So my faith gets me through hard times and stuff like that. Some people use meditation, all that good stuff, bathing, so, you know, whatever it is, do that once a week and
mm,
it somehow internalizes and flips it out. Like, I stopped thinking I was worth a dollar when all my gratitude list was, my dad is still alive, my mom is still alive, I have an amazing husband who treats me better than just about any other woman I've ever met on this planet. Your worth starts going into things that are more important than I have $500,000 in the bank. It's so empty when you look at it that way. So that's how I got out of it, is just by having a gratitude journal and just making sure that anytime I feel like, oh my God, I want another sync, I want another placement, I want all these things, like I stop and I now am just grateful for what I do have.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, the gratitude could be for so many other things, but I feel like, yeah, gratitude should be like for me, it should be for things that I have because I am who I am, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. And it can be hard work. Like I think it can be things that eventually show up as like monetary gains. I mean, like a roof over our head, arguably it costs money. So it's like
Yeah.
it's something to be grateful for. And I love what you're saying in like have, as opposed to people, making it so sexy to have a journal every day and like do 40 minutes of meditation a day and come in with all these like things that are can be overwhelming, even to some people. Even to tell them to meditate for 5 minutes in the morning is a huge thing. So like
It's a huge thing for me
saying
too.
what you were saying about like what.
I said that's a huge thing for me too.
Yeah, 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 yeah. 100%. It was for me too. I mean, like, I started meditating for the wrong reasons, but it kind of like it just it all sent me on a different path of like searching, what am I doing this for? What am I meditating for? And I started actually, funny enough, I started meditating for my ego, and because I didn't feel belonging, and it was so weird because I'm still it's something I'm still a work in progress, as we all. And I really appreciate your vulnerability about the negative 300, because I mean, like, I've had moments where, so for me, I came to the States in 2016, was it? came
Hmm.
in, like I left Israel, was like, I'm not going back there, whatever happens in my life. And like suddenly, like I had this crazy debt that I had to pay in Israel. And I was broke anyway. So I anyway had like $100 to my name in my account,
Right.
but I had now to pay, it was like $2,000 or $3,000, which I didn't
Oh,
have. And I mean, like, I had so much stress, and like my parents are getting pressured by the bank, by my bank, because that's how apparently banks do things. They're gonna attack whoever they can to get their fucking money back.
yep.
And I mean, like my parents were putting the pressure on me, but then like what happened was it was a bit of a hard lesson, because like I had to sell my guitars in Israel for that to actually to be able to pay that, which was really sad because I had like two guitars that I loved
Yeah,
dearly.
it's an
Like,
emotional connection to your
yeah,
instrument. Yeah.
yeah. So I had to sell those, and but it was also like this moment where I had to understand, like I had to ask myself, like, is this what I'm based on? Like, it fucking sucks, you know.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is so powerful, because in the end of the day, like, we're gonna get existential with it a little bit, and listeners love that actually on this podcast, I feel like, but that's what they listen to it for. But we don't fucking die with $100 bill inside our the ground.
No,
We
it's
die,
the last thing
we
you're worried about.
die just like we were born. We die naked. We were born naked. That's just how life is. And just damn, I'm going on tangents, but I'm watching the uh Stars show, Shogun, and it's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
about, it's amazing, and it's a lot about the Japanese culture, and how they basically, their whole principle is like, we are just, life is nothing, life is just a little fling,
It's a little glimpse, yeah.
and we are nothing, and we should appreciate it, and when we die, we die. And uh, uh, um we have to have our kind of little world to go back into. And what happens is, a lot of people, that little world is like financial stability or whatever it is, and then their self-worth is based on it, and then their life sucks because that is all they work for. And I imagine you felt it really strongly when you were working in a job you didn't like in social media, even though it's a job that
Yeah.
I'm sure that helps you so much today. um I mean, be going through this, like doing stuff for things that aren't you, is such a mind fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. I felt it more. You're totally, like, right on the money. Like, I felt that more when I was working and had, like, a million social media clients than I ever did. Like, I wake up happy with what I do every day. I wake up at peace. Yeah, sure, you're gonna hit some snags, like, you know, music industry comes with stresses too, but like I've never been so happy and carefree in the sense of, like, I don't really care. Does it stress me out if I have $100 only in my pocket? Yeah, because I have real bills and so does everyone else. But it doesn't, it's no longer equated. I don't say, oh my God, I only have $100. I'm only worth like
Yeah,
nothing right
yeah.
now, you know? So it's been a real interesting year as far as self discovery goes. And yeah, thank God for doing music full time.
Yeah. I want to share something. I want to share something. My partner actually, like, once, we live here in Bali. She's Indonesian, and she's like a boss lady. She's a little bit of
I
a
didn't know
boss
you were in
lady.
Bali.
Yeah, I am. That's why it's morning here.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. I was late for for our call, 15 minutes, and the reason was I needed to take our dogs for a walk because I was sleeping in. So
Oh,
like
that's totally fine.
I slept in today, and I was like, and I see we have a call, and I'm like, damn, girlies need to go for a walk, and so we made it happen, and all that kind of stuff. But back to what I was trying to say is, my girlfriend sometimes takes me, and I'm fully transparent about my financial situation. I had a really great year because of sonic branding gigs, and then like I had a really bad year because I was just trying to build my catalog. Bad year. I mean, it's a good year, but it's just like it's
You
challenging.
have to take it as a loss, yeah, because it's not generating right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but she takes me every once in a while, looks me dead in the eyes, and goes, "Boo boo, look at me. You got this. Say it. I got this. I got a Marvel placement. I got all these things." And she just like runs it to me, and it's like the sweetest thing I feel like a cornerstone can do for
Yeah.
one. It's like it's more of it's less dwelling in my stress and more just showing me what is and what is possible. And that's why I feel like partners like I mean partners can be a make or break of a human,
Yeah.
because
1,000%.
that's the human you spend most time with. And if they are stressful about your situation, then how would you not be stressed about your situation?
Yeah, no,
It's a crazy
a thousand
paradox.
percent. 1,000%. It works with colleagues like that too. Like people on teams and stuff, you feel, when the minute that you stop saying, you go boo boo, like you can do it, you know what I mean? And you guys start turning on each other and like, why is this not happening yet? Or why is this whatever? They're a cornerstone too, like, so a lot of folks don't even equate like what like your home life, like your team at home, your cornerstone at home, it does carry into like a work life environment, you know what I mean? And um yeah, your team is like your cornerstone too. So it's,
Yeah,
but I love that for you. I love that she takes you and looks you dead in the eyes and says, you got this. Because it everybody deserves someone who does that for them. And I
yeah.
swear to God, if anyone is listening to this thing and like they don't have somebody who's saying, you got this, boo boo, you just you just text me. I will look you
Ah,
dead ass in
yeah.
your face on Zoom and tell you you got
Yeah,
it.
Brianna's got your back.
Mhm.
Um, I wanna pivot like you've been pivoting in our conversation, and I wanna ask you, like, so you've seen again many sides of the industry, like songwriting. You have your whole thing going for you where you've sold an IP, which I'll let you explain if you want what that actually means, selling IPs, and why maybe some people want to look at it, but also where do you feel like this whole music space is going again because of it's so interesting to me because of your savviness, your business knowledge, your social media knowledge. You're such a well-rounded human being, and you're an insane singer. I also know it from really good friends of mine that yeah, like that are mutual friends of ours, that you are insanely good at what you do. So where do you see things kind of going with music in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with your point A, which is the IP conversation. So I'm gonna I'm gonna say this, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, she's a heathen," because I do believe in selling your master, and I do believe in selling your publishing when you have bills to pay, and I believe when you're a creative like myself and you have negative $300 in your account earlier this year, and you're looking for ways to pay your bills and not drag your partner, like my husband, into financial distress.
Mm,
There are very real ways that you can make investments and move forward with your craft. And so I went to the PMC, and I do these transparency talks all over my LinkedIn. I just post them. It's like usually a video of me in bed, just with my hair in a crazy bun, just talking about what I plan on doing, and I let people know if it works or not. And so I did this transparency talk going to the PMC, and I said all my goal is, and I invested quite a bit of money getting there. Luckily, I have a cousin who lives in LA, so I was able to actually stay with her, but I'm not able to stay with her all the time. You know what I mean?
mm,
So there's hotel cost, rental car cost, airfare. So I ended up taking out an affirm loan, and I have no problem talking about this because this is just what you do sometimes to get where you need to get going. But I had a very strong feeling like I needed to be at the PMC because my goal was I wanted to sell some of my personal songs for cash money, and I needed it. And I knew that one of those people were going to be at the PMC because it's the production music conference. I knew in my heart of hearts that one of those libraries needs my trailer music and they're going to want to buy it outright.
Mm.
So I invested and took a little loan. I think it was like $1,000 by the time I got, my flight and everything, and went to the PMC and ended up meeting with a library who exactly was looking to acquire some IP. I had heard like, this is why you keep your ears open at all times. Like, I had heard somebody say, "Oh, that library is acquiring. They're making acquisitions," and I was like, and beelined it to that library before anybody could get to. I was like, I am going for it. I know that you want this. And organically, it ended up happening, and it paid my bills for 2 months straight. And I was able to pay my collaborator. So it was, yeah. And I sold my masters, my publishing. I keep my writers, and they get their syncs because they own the master. And like, there's nothing wrong with that to me because I'm going to make 100 more trailer tracks. you know, there's,
Yeah.
but what that did do is allowed me to learn the process of an IP acquisition, which is fairly complicated, but also really, really great lessons were learned in that
Mm.
entire process. Now I can say that I've actually sold my music for cash money, and that my quality, it was reassuring for me because I knew that my quality actually did generate dollars. So if I'm going to investors, I can say this did this and it performed this well, and this
Mm.
sold for this. You know what I mean? So now
Mm.
it starts giving me a baseline of what I want to start at when I go to investors and saying like, hey, if I generate 100 tracks and sell them for X, this is the return on your money. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And then
Oh.
thirdly, it showed me that the norm that I had been taught, which is never sell your masters, never sell your, never do that. It taught me that like I don't give a fuck about any of that,
Mm.
and the reason why was because I was able to feed my family for
Yep.
2 months, and there's not a whole lot more that you care about than that. You know what I mean? So
That's amazing. I feel like there is something to be said about um being being able to put yourself in a vulnerable situation. And I feel like every time I go to LA, I'm in a vulnerable situation because I just spent four grand at least, because
yeah,
I'm
a
flying
trip to
from
Bali
Bali.
is not cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then Airbnbs and car and all these things, the PMC, all these things. It's like I'm putting my money where my mouth is, but now I gotta get something back out of it. And
yeah, you gotta make good on
just
it.
just like you were saying, for me, I didn't have a beeline thing because I know I got again, I know I got something like my podcast to get people to follow up with people with. Um, but I also set up for myself to sell some tracks because yeah, there's this thing of don't sell your publishers. There are people who go like only non-exclusive, only exclusive, only
Yeah,
this, only that. We gotta fucking make a living. Leave me alone. And if I want to sell some tracks to BMG tomorrow in order to live for a year in Bali, then that's what I'm gonna do. And some people would tell me like, yeah, you're selling your soul. It's like these tracks are like massive bangers, and one sync can be like 30 tracks you sell, and I'm like, yes, and
and you still get your
I
writers.
and I still, yeah, I still get my writers, but I also still need, I just don't want to do work that I hate. So I'd rather do something I love, sell it for maybe less than it would get for if each track got synced, and then get back in royalties. And as we were talking before the conversation that we had right now, I and maybe you can double click on that. I feel like big labels are going to be gradually be taking more and more of the chunk, because they will be the only ones who can stand to the Sunos and to the AI music and all that kind of stuff. So it's anyway going to a direction where sync fees are going to get lower, in my opinion. Again, I hope somebody shits on what I'm saying and explains to me entirely why I'm wrong and why fees are going to be amazing in 10 years. But the way that I see things, catalogs are going to be buying music, and people are going to be getting paid that way anyway, which is not through sync fees unless you're doing custom music. So um my rant is about in the end of the day, us selling music is just one of our ways to make a living in the space. And
Yeah.
if you are, and if you're told otherwise, then it's probably by somebody who's privileged to get sync play, not sync, trailer placements every week or two, and have that
Oh
sustain them.
yeah, don't even get me started on
And
that. Yeah. Yeah,
so
don't even
yeah,
get me started on that.
yeah.
That's yeah, that listen, there is such thing as sync privilege, okay? Like it's a real thing. It's a
Yes.
real thing. These are folks who have been and well earned their spots,
Yeah.
okay? However, they've lost touch with what it was like, and not having those giant contracts with Paramount or CBS or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They've lost touch with what it was like when you were the provider, the service provider, and not the connector,
Mm,
and being just the musician and then trying to get in and just getting it synced. It's like at the end of the day, those who hold the relationships hold the power. And if
mm,
you are not in a position to constantly fly yourself out to these places and be in these people's faces, okay, you're not going to be the one who has the power position. And it's just because that's what it takes. It's just human connection. It's just who you vibe with, who you trust, building that repertoire, that with somebody who is going to genuinely care. Anyways, I'm on a rant, but basically, yeah, there's a thing as sync privilege, and these folks forget what it took to get those relationships, and and how expensive that may have been, or whatever. So to answer your question, um, just from what I've seen in this past year, which has been very turbulent, very, hopefully coming out of this strike, everybody's painfully optimistic that 2025 is going to open up lots of sinks for people. The fees are lower. You can ask any music supervisor. The fees are lower right now because of the absolute insane quantity of people who are now trying to sync their music. Okay. Like there is so much overflow that, in my opinion, it allows networks to come in lower because someone's going to take it. So
mm.
someone's going to take it. You know what I mean? Whereas maybe before there was a set precedent of, you're going to get paid $1,500 for a placement like this. But now it's like, no, that's actually $500 because we have all these other people. Like we have hundreds of thousands of people. One of them is going to place it for $500. It doesn't have to be you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I see it going. That's the part of the pond I'm seeing right now where, and supervisors always want to give you the most money. They're never going to be like, they got into this because they genuinely care about music. They care about breaking artists and bringing success to artists, but the music supervisor doesn't have all the power. Like
Nope.
they're at the mercy of their employers for that
Yep.
project. You know what I mean? And if their employer says you only have $200 to give each person who syncs on this network show, that's what they have. Like that's what they have. Don't. And because of that, and because of the influx of how many people, the sheer amount of people, Roy, like that are doing this sync thing right now, it's almost devalued
Mm.
the sync fees. It's like muddied it, in my opinion, because, and I'm just coming into this, like I'm only 3 years in, really, and I've had to watch it change so much after, like before the strike, after mid strike, and
Yeah.
then after the strike now, and I'm like, this is very interesting. So yeah, to your point, I can see in the future especially with AI and Suno and this, that, and the other. The only resolution I can see is being able to unionize, and I think the closest thing to unionizing as a songwriter is Sona, um, because there's no like protection really. The libraries have been putting up a fight, like putting stuff in their language, like if this is AI generated at all, we're not placing this on television. But that doesn't mean that the networks, like I know big
Yeah.
libraries that also still use AI. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And until we all decide that that's just not going to happen as a people and as a industry, then there's a very large possibility that the labels might end up acquiring everything, and and if they don't acquire it, they'll use AI to generate it. You never know. Like I don't know what the next 10 years looks like, but what I see right now is a lot of acquisitions happening because the industry is so turbulent. So the ones with the money are the ones who can acquire.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of labels, like large labels, who are going to start making some pretty large power moves to take over the independent markets.
Mm. Whoa. Yeah. So
Yeah.
where it meets me is like what larger networks do, like what the bigger labels do. They do like blanket deals. That's what they're known for, right? Like and
Hmm.
that's totally where things are going, where yeah, where the fees are getting lower. I was actually talking to a few weeks. It's the episode I just put it out last week, but with the Evil Genius crew, Tim
Yeah,
Mosher,
Eddie Wall
Eddie
and
Ole, yeah, these
love
guys,
those guys.
these guys have been around, and but what they say is really interesting. Is like even if you get if you get a really low fee for your stuff, you should never disregard it, because yes, you get the upfront, but as you were saying, people forget about where the real money is earned in most sync artists' catalog, and it's back end in
Yeah.
the end of the day. Like I know people who tell me, yeah, give me sync fees, but like royalties beat it any day, because there are people who are really, again, they are hooked with the right people, and just like you said, the right connections, and they don't forget their star, and their north star is to make a living off music. And that's what I've been battling within me. It's like that, looking at that big thing, that big shiny thing, saying
Yeah.
shit, like all like basically all the people who are around me, all my peers are people who get a lot of freaking placements, either trailers and ad TV, and I'm like, when is it me? When can I be that one? But then in the end of the day, like consistency and the ability to put steady pressure is what matters. And the sync fees, yes, they can pay a bill or two, but they're not the end all be all. As long as you got your writers, you build that, basically that passive inflow that I really really hope can continue with what's happening with AI, which yeah, where I hope that there will be some sort of a compromise, or some sort of a way that we can coexist with that kind of huge money that is put behind AI. And also to ask, how can we live with that? How can we, instead of resenting it, which is what I feel most of the time, instead of resenting it, how can we actually live with it and create something, maybe even together? I don't know how that looks, right? But right now, what it looks like is people can take my music, basically make something exactly similar, and then flag me for it. Like they literally like do shit like that, which is super dark. But again, people want money, so they'll do it. They'll put music just like mine on Spotify and get it on playlists and shit like that. Which I really hope resolves itself in the coming years somehow.
Well, we've always been in a world of light and dark. There's always been good and evil. That's what all the superhero movies are about,
Right.
Marvel
Right.
franchise and stuff
Right.
like that. Um, I think that with this, it's the same thing. I think that there's the good people and the bad people, and I think that they're trying to figure, it's gonna it's gonna come to a head at some point,
Mm.
and there will be like this big epic battle of things. But until then, there's all these little micro battles that are happening, and so far we're winning. Like so
Mm.
far, the good people are winning, and it's not to say that AI is evil. It's just like any other tool. You can use it for bad. You
Right.
can, but it's what humans decide to do with it. And last I checked, AI doesn't have a social security number or have to pay taxes and bills
Mm.
to exist. We do. So
Mm.
there's always going to be a human motive and initiative to keep AI out of the picture because this is how we create. This is how our souls. We have
Mm.
souls that
Mm.
are fulfilled. You know what I mean? And AI doesn't have that. So as long as the human part of this conquers at the end of the day and people realize that humans have to make a living doing something, then I hope that AI finds its natural place to help enable humans to do what they do even better without overtaking or replacing the creators, the actual humans. But there's always going to be this epic battle of good versus evil, and there's always going to be people of each side of the coin telling you what's good and what's bad.
Right.
And I look forward to seeing where it lands. But as of right now, it's not too dark right
Mm.
now.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
right?
It also depends on our outlook on the world, right? Like I feel like again, like the Spotify's and Apple's, some people would call it evil, and yes, they pay nothing basically to artists at the moment, but you know, in the end of the day, it's where the world is going, whether we like it or whether we don't like it. It's just whether it's whether we choose to embrace it and roll with it. And I feel like the dangerous part is when, for people like me who don't naturally roll with it, to like keep persisting against it and say that's not happening, kind of in a way like that, as opposed to, I feel like people like you who are, you're really catching up and kind of doing due diligence and researching and looking to where things are going, and that's where we need to be as musicians, as composers, as everything like in this industry. In order to be relevant, we have to stay relevant.
Yeah, you have to keep your connection strong. I mean, it's all about, I hate saying this, social media, content creation. It is a real thing. I know we're all a bunch of creatives, but even if you prop your camera up and just showing you cook up as a
Yeah.
producer, as a composer, and just
Yeah.
make like using using AI to short edit it, or asking a friend. Like I use InShot, like it's an app, and it's so easy to just like chop up my you know videos and make them easy and digestible for people on social media platforms. So yeah, being relevant's a huge thing. So unfortunately, that means you're now a content creator
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah. So what's I guess, what would be a last piece of advice from you to people who are coming up, who are doing their thing, trying to get their syncs, trying to get their money right, trying to do all these things? What would be your 2 cents for them?
One foot in front of the other.
Mm.
Uh, have tangible goals. Set tangible goals. Like if you're going to go to anything, when especially unless you're a millionaire, if you have, and even when you're a millionaire, you should manage your money. But
Mm.
unless you have money and it's not a problem, always set goals. Like if you plan on investing anything, like going to the PMC or going to Sync Spotlight or going to wherever these conferences are, if you plan on spending any money on it, set at least one goal and make sure that you execute on it. Even if it doesn't happen, you set out and you execute on it, because that's showing that you understand what it's going to take to make a return on your investment, which is your time, your energy, your money sometimes. I would also say to to say this is gonna get me in trouble. I would also say to make a list of those that you have negative encounters with, and just keep it to yourself, but make a list. And the reason
Mm,
why is because there will be a day where maybe someone's going to need to know, and maybe you've had similar experiences, and it's the part of this industry is it's so small that you don't get to be a bad guy and not
mm,
be exposed. So
mm,
that a part of maneuvering this entire thing is just knowing who to trust, who you can trust, who you can't, who to work with, who not to work with, especially in the sync industry. So if you're trying to get your syncs up, it's important to know who to work with and who not to, and who to stay away from. And there are very real people to stay away from on this side.
mm.
Um, so, and then I would say to be, no matter what, be kind, because there are people who are going and facing things that you have no idea about. And they could be a senior level executive who's getting a divorce, who's lost a baby,
Mm,
who's had a parent pass away. You have no idea what these people are dealing with. So, above all, stay kind, because that kindness will come back and it will feed you. Like, no matter what. And I can speak from personal experience that there were moments where, like, I could tell a music supervisor was highly uncomfortable in a room, and I would go offer them to get out of here and, like, let's get out and go get a coffee, and, like, just to remove them from the situation. And that's turned into a sync placement for me
mm, mm.
later on down the road, because kindness, paired with talent and trust and building that relationship, I mean, that's the entire secret to syncing. Like,
Yeah,
that's literally it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I know that's a lot of bullet points, but
Amazing. No, it's amazing, and I feel like to just to add to it, yeah, the thing that you were saying that you thought that would get you in trouble, to me it makes so much sense, and also like having balancing that with the kindness and not immediately putting people on that short list of people you don't want to be around is just
mhm.
like that ability to show compassion to the point, um till the point where it gets a little bit like, okay, this person is somebody I don't want to
Yeah,
work with, is totally fine. And you know, like I've already worked with people who I met later on, and I was like, well, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to work with this person again, because they just the interaction was so ice cold that
yeah,
I wasn't able to kind of see through that, and that's totally fine. But
yeah,
you know, like even and that's where kindness comes, and maybe like next time I meet that person, they're in a completely different state of mind, and I'm like, whoa, I love being around them. So it's not, I feel like a lot of people like, and that's the same conversation with identity, is like a lot of people like to box things and to keep them that way, and that's the easiest way to go about things. But sometimes asking, what if I'm wrong, like giving grace,
yeah,
and the ability to say, okay, that person was an asshole to me, but they might have worked on themselves, they might have done something else, and of course that still keeps me safe, because I'm not going and you know, embracing them into my world, but maybe I'm gonna remove them from my list, and give them that little bit of grace. Anyway, that's what my cents on that.
no, I love it. And it's still, and to your point, it still requires, but it still requires accountability and
Yeah.
eventually an apology. Like, there's an individual who's very high up there that our first interaction on LinkedIn was highly inappropriate, highly sarcastic, highly asshole. Okay,
Mm,
highly,
mm,
to the point where I had to explain to this person that I just because I was reaching out didn't mean I wanted to date them.
mm,
Okay,
mm.
this is someone high up. All
Wow.
right. So it's one of those things. And as a woman, as a young woman in this
Yeah.
industry, it makes it 10 times more difficult to reach out, I feel, especially to men who are holding power positions, because they're like, oh, why are
Mm,
they reaching out to me? Oh, they're kind of cute. You know what I mean? It's human nature. But that person would, before we ever worked together, it would require accountability. Sorry, I was creepy, and apologize. Like
Mm,
that, it still comes with accountability and an apology. So it's like,
mm.
and
Yeah,
but that
if it's
doesn't,
an
that
interaction
doesn't mean
like
I'll never
that.
work with them. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's an interaction like that, then I completely can see it, can see it the way that you speak. But I feel like if somebody's energy is just like not feeling right to you,
Hmm.
it's a different conversation. Yeah, if somebody's being inappropriate to you, it's a different conversation. It's a conversation that needs to have a resolution. But if it's somebody that you've just had an encounter with and their energy was a bit off, then don't immediately put them on that list.
Yeah, of course.
That's what
Yeah,
I
it all takes,
hundred
yeah, it
percent.
takes understanding, kindness.
Well, Brianna, I wanna say something. I really appreciate you. Like, I really appreciate your grind, your hustle, your ability to be so vulnerable, and it's like you show up in one place like you show in all places, and I really appreciate you for that. Um you're a really cool human, like, to be honest. Like, I
Thank
feel like
you.
you're a really cool human, and you're really doing good things, and you're so active, and you are so giving, and there's so many good things I can say about you. Um and I'm super grateful talking about gratitude. I'm grateful for you coming on and showing your perspective, because it is so diverse and different, and refreshing to me, to somebody like me. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and say that I really appreciate you for coming on today, and thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Troy. I appreciate you. I'm glad we got to connect, and appreciate you breathing life into me just then, and I receive it. And I'm glad that what you said actually just struck an amazing chord with me, which is where you show up in one place, you show up in another, and that has been my goal from the very. So you just fulfilled a part of me that you didn't even know. So thank you for saying that. And yeah, I mean, I hope that we get to work on and collaborate on some projects in the future. And, I'll be keeping an eye out. And if there's anything I can do to support you or anything, like, just let me know. And
Same
I'll try
here.
to show up.
Same here. Same here.
Maybe in
Same.
Bali.
No, you're laughing, but I've been talking about a songwriting camp that I'm going to put together here, and I still haven't been. It still hasn't been locked in, but it's going to happen. Like, I can feel it inside me. I'm
Hmm.
still a bit resistant, as my listeners know, but I know that it's going to happen. So, like, we're
Well, when
laughing
you
now. Who knows? Who knows what
I'm
will be
not
the plans?
laughing. Listen, I literally, did you see that list I just put on? I said one international songwriting camp that
Oh
Level Up
shit!
helps,
I did
either
not see that.
produces or co-produces, and now we're having this conversation one day later. So
Oh shit.
that, and Bali is one of my top places I want to visit on my
Mhm.
list. And it's also one of the places that we've talked about previously throwing a sync
Yeah.
songwriting camp for. So you never
Mm,
know. It might be a sync gems level up
let's
songwriting
go.
camp in the
Let's
future. You
let's
never
let's
know.
get this. I'm that's definitely all I need to kind of start things, because yeah, we'll talk about this later. Anyway, thank you so
I
much for
get it.
coming on.